Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I'm newtmechanist, and today we're going to be continuing our game dev project. We're going to drift back into some visual stuff. There's going to be some placeholders that we're using shorter term, as per usual, but it's flooring today, or at least the background. We have entities, the projectiles, enemies, character on the screen already, but it's in kind of a gray void. We're going to be changing that today. Now, we could be using built-in Godot tile map features to do that the quote-unquote easy way. There are aspects of that I find kind of fiddly, so we might avoid that. The plan is to avoid that and instead more shader shenanigans. How well that'll do? Well, we're going to try. But in the meantime, I would say let's check in with the cats, but aside from a brief pass-through by Sherbet, there in the play area, we don't really have anybody visible, which is weird. They're all getting some snacks or laying around off camera right now. So we'll put Ember's spot on camera initially in case she decides to make an appearance. Oh, but here we go. Okay. So one of the first elements we need is to get map rendering in place. So we are going to add another folder here, which is going to be entity. Keep that namespace intact. Mason drink out of a fountain. So there's a big dish at the base of the fountain where the water kind of accumulates and circulates, and the inevitable spout that the water comes out of. And he currently has his nose jammed up against the top of the fountain, licking at the exit of the spout, right up into it. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Okay, so this is the renderer for entities. Alright, this is probably going to cause a little chaos, but... we're going to go over onto the Godot side. If we try to run it right now, we're probably going to hit a hitch here because I don't think it will be able to find... Yeah. Nothing's rendering. And that's because our startup resource is not going to have the right bits built into it. So we're going to go into our rendering, entity rendering. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. And the entity mesh renderer. There we go. It says it has that script attached, but if you look there, that doesn't exist anymore. Load, what's that do? Oh wow, that's a mess. Right there. So now we have the entity mesh renderer set back up. We need to go back up to our default startup resource. We now have entity mesh renderer set there. Which... we're going to drag that back in just to be sure. Oh, and the mesh renderer itself. Not the script. Script cannot be empty. Well, that's not right. We're gonna restart Godot real quick. That's why. It doesn't like that folder moved. This is one of the weaknesses of Godot. There's no reason for you to open that file because that file doesn't exist, Godot. Yeah. How to fix. There's Godot there. Let's give this a moment. Is it doing this? We're rummaging around here. There is no longer a scene. Oh dear. Let's switch over to cat cams for a moment. Maybe we'll spot one or two. Oh, Mason's on the bed. Ember's in the play area. Yeah. Let's see. This scene. Why would we even have this scene? We're not using it. There was the problem. That's a dead scene. I can remake that for the purposes of a dead render. This render does nothing. Camera handler is going to need to be moved out of this. Just so. If you recall, last time we did cover a lot of ground. We've got enemy spawning, bullet spawning, all moved over into a relatively uniform system for how they're set up. So you define a bullet entity and how it behaves, but how it gets loaded up and how it starts appearing on the screen is the same way that the enemies do. Much nicer. We can also change frequencies just in a file. Since I was confusing myself for a bit, let's sidestep up. Bit of audio scramble going on there. Someday I may figure out the source of that problem. It's probably one of those really obvious things. So we have the spawner for bullet yarn. If we go into this, we have a frequency. If we were to set this to 0.5, and then we run the game, yarn balls are spawning faster now. We're able to set the base spawn rate within the item now. You might want to see this. Oh, dear. Well, we gotta have at least a little scuff, you know? It's required. Hello, Ember. You want to come sit with me? Come here. I think at least once on the pet board, shameless plug, there's a Discord with a pet board. I posted the sound of her voice. She trills for the most part, and she's very communicative. We swap these. This pattern will actually have noticeably less coverage. It's still there, but because they don't spiral, they don't really cover as much ground. But isn't that neat? For the giggles. Yes, I'm stalling. One of these is zigzag. I have the tooltip wrong. Oh, that went completely wrong. Huh. As they're spawning, they have ceased moving. Well, now I need to recreate that. Oh, here we go. What do we got? Null object. It would have had to happen in the entity creation process. What would it be? Have to be a spawner item. Let's see if we can recreate that by just using the wave motions here. Get these in here so the blobs don't interfere. Okay. There's something wrong with the wave motions. Look in the code. Look at our behaviors. So move wave type. Let's check our inventory items. Uses behavior movement wave. Which means it needs to be a behavior movement type. Movement wave. And the code for movement wave. For those joining us, expecting me to be doing some flooring-related stuff in the game, we encountered a bug, and I'm trying to fix that bug. Where? Hey there, Destroyer. Welcome. Welcome. Join us for some bug fixing. It's moving along. Our bullet spawning and the enemy spawning are currently in their, I'm going to call it their alpha stage. We can create them. They move around how we want mostly, but there's a bug with one of them that is causing the whole system to implode. We're going to run it through C# and see if I can't catch it. Start. We're just going to throw one of the wave motions on it right away. Okay, it explodes. Targeter. That's why. Does not have a targeter set. But it doesn't use targeter, so we're gonna change that around. I think we can do that. If targeter exists, we're going to do that to the other one as well. It's a movement type, and we're going to add wave here. These don't actually need a targeter. I could just remove that line altogether. There it is. E. We don't need that either. No, this one needs to be there. Oopsie doopsie. If there is a targeter, rotate it. Spread pattern. Zigzag pattern. Wave pattern. Spiraling wave pattern. We do get a frames per second drop when we have over 4,000 entities active at once. We can get pretty far up there with entities past this point, though. But one of the differences is the spawning of entities is in a script now. There is a JSON object that defines when and what entities spawn, how long and how frequently, that kind of thing, where they spawn. So we can say things that, like, at the 30-second mark, this enemy spawns, kind of stuff. Which allows us to do things like boss waves and the like. At the moment, I'm not planning on doing the vampire survivors every now and then the screen is cleared. It's they can have, if there's going to be special spawns, then I'll probably have some extra stuff set up for that. Like, they will go away kind of things. But functionally, we have a health bar. You can get hit right now 10 times. If you notice, we have all of these entities animating in the background, but we are paused. They're not moving. That puts us back up to about 220 frames per second. If we stop the spawning of numerous of them so that they start to die off, our frame rate can jump back into the thousands with that. Do we need that much? No. We can put a cap in that on the game and just have it set at 60. Like, it will run at 60 or 120, 144, whatever we want it to do. Enough time has passed that we are past the time when enemies are spawning. The bullets spawn in the same fashion. We have a file within it that says, this is the entity to spawn, and this is how often to spawn it, and this is where you spawn it. So it is saying the yarn ball entity right now spawn it every half second, and make it spawn on top of the player. Okay, but we fixed the bug. This makes it so entities don't have to have targeters. If there is one, we make use of it. Or behaviors, I should say. I should probably... I could put this in the parent of it, but then the parent behavior miss. Okay, never mind. Movement wave and movement zigzag don't need to update targets. Because they're not doing that. So we'll get that out of there so that we don't deal with it. Okay, we have that. Let's do a quick commit with that fix in place. First, we are going to clear all of that. Go in and we're going to fix move wave and move zigzag. Where's our base behavior? That. Then we're going to take all of these. That to the origin, and then we are going to... Nope, don't want to do that. Merge that into main. Merge that. Wait. Something went wrong here. That's in there. We pushed that. That's merged. Something has gone wrong. Behavior folder. Let's look at cats while I panic a little bit. In here. Let's reload that because it can find it. It can load it. Okay. Some folders were, as far as C# is concerned, missing. But they were still there. We did not lose our files. Everything should be fine. Everything is okay. Get that loaded so I don't miss something going wrong there. Spawning properly. Okay. Quick break and right back into it. And we're back. Of course, I put the camera on Sammy and she immediately goes elsewhere. I have, Mason is returning to the bed. He will leave the bed if I get up and move around, because he'll go to the air hockey table there and wait for me to pass, so he'll get extra pets. The little toy that Sammy is messing with, if I turn it on, when it's knocked around, it will emit a little mist of catnip oil. They don't care about it much. There was initial interest, and then it was like, oh, this is boring now. Alright, so we have all of this stuff back in. Everything is functional. We've got our rendering folder renamed. I should call this renderer entity renderer. Like, the file should be named entity renderer. Just so. This will break a couple of other things. Over to the Godot side. Cancel that. Load it back up. Build. We periodically need to make sure that both sides of this function, because Godot will ultimately be the thing that packages it. And if that breaks, we're going to have a bad time. Okay, we have entity renderer set up. Still functional. We're going to call you entity renderer. This is relevant because now we're going to add map. And that will have a new class. Ember was getting insufficient shoulder pats, so now she is on the back of my chair as she learned from Sherbet. Ember's cat acne has been nothing compared to Sherbet's. Sherbet's got real bad recently, so he very much resents me at the moment. He had much muck to remove from his chin. Though in the process, since I had him upset already, I actually got his forepaws trimmed. So maybe now he can walk across the bed without doing the sort of lizard on hot sand high step, accompanied by pop, pop, pop as his claws dig in and pull out of blankets. And some back scratches. But we'll make a new class, which is going to be a map renderer. Map. Partial. And it extends node 2D, which requires Godot. Wrong button. And as part of that, let's load up other tabs. There we go. We're going to get our entity render for reference. Grab this. We actually need to go into services now. There's a lot of fix things happening at the moment. So services renderer, we are going to change that to entity renderer, which changes a bunch of files. are then going to add that. So entity render is set. Then in here, that map render are set. Map render. We go into setting that, or I think we're setting that in game. Don't think camera is ultimately being set here because we're putting it there. I might be able to move camera handling into programmatic stuff. Hey there, Drunken Dwarf. Welcome. We're trying to get to world rendering today. I think we've got entity behavior and some similar elements good enough for alpha. Oh man, this guy's a bit in zoomy mode there. That was a playful pounce from tan blanket to gray blanket. Little bit of a tail tip twitch going on. Doing okay, Drunken Dwarf. I'm seeing how many days of stream we can get into this week. I really want to get back to daily. I really need to get back to daily. But on Monday, we had some fantastic code progress, so I'm trying to ride those endorphins, you know? Okay. Player. Child that is there. Then in services, startup resources needs a change. Our entity render insert is set. That is a map render. So what we're setting up here, we already have logic that generates all of the entities, the player, the bullets, the enemies, that kind of thing. We are going to make a separate one entirely that is going to render before the entities, that is going to be the floor. You know, how the map looks. I don't know necessarily how world collision is going to work. For the time being, we won't really have that. And we'll avoid visual structures that would require that need. For now, but we get map render, which means we're going to need to go back into the Godot side. Got startup resource there properly. We're going to rebuild this, which will cause some problems. Don't care about that. Entity render and map render are empty because we moved some stuff around. Okay, in map render, we need to create one for that. So we are going to have that shader. Shader won't appear there because it's not a folder that is relevant to C#. We'll leave that there. I don't really need to move that shader. That shader is only relevant to this, so we're going to move that there. That will make this unhappy with us at the moment. Okay, let's see. Default startup resources. Weird. Mesh render. Is it just in services? Maybe that's where that is. No. I think it would be in here, but is not. It's not in there. There is a sprite animator part where we get the shader, so. Since how the mesh is handled. Gotta be a point at which we're setting that shader. Right there. Startup resources sprite animation shader. It's right after entity manager. Okay, we moved it in Godot, it found it. Fine. Okay, great, great. Should have had a problem. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that was a bit of a chase there. We're moving slow. This is a fiddlier thing that I'm trying to do. So, for one, I have a lot of setup to get done on it. Class. folder should be fine. Ends map render. It has to be a public partial. All right, entity render. Right now we have it during its update, and I think that's fine. Map renders need to have logic that tells it what to render. Switch to game. They are really mobile today. Normally we have a lot more napping. Couldn't see who was involved in the chase, but Ember is chasing. So a render. Okay, if we're going to have a render, we need a concept about world state here. Which is part of the map. A map state. It'll be useful if the map state is already in a format that we can just pass along. So we're going to have that set up to be a one-dimensional we want to be able to do two things. We want to be able to have a global map state, so it's okay if we have a more concise array here, or an easier to use array. We could have infinite world generation. That in there for now. Okay, so the map state is determined by, well, ultimately all the map state is going to be is a grid. And it will have a subgrid that represents the visible space. Right, Tess. We can just have it loop. So it can reference, and hey, welcome, Tess. We can have this is what the entire world would be generated. And then we can have it cycle, because enemies don't care about the world state, really. Or the map state. They just spawn. We might have special logic for when enemies spawn based on getting to a particular map position. Might be an interesting thing. Triggered events, as it were. But they don't need to care. We could just have it infinitely procedurally generated, but that's for another time. You know, it just keeps making new map. But I would need an algorithm for the procedural generation, so that's fiddly. But yeah, we need a method that's going to return a fixed size chunk that says this is what's visible. And I would like it to be a single dimensional array that we can piece apart based on service information that is like visible, like game state rendered out stuff. That we can ask like how big is the world kind of stuff, or how big is a map tile. Because what we're looking for with this generation is to be able to say, I have a box that is following the player. And that box renders the visible map state. Every pixel that is visible will be derived from a texture. But it will be rendered according to your offset. So if I'm sitting at a particular coordinate, there will be an offset from 0. And we'll be able to translate that resultant position on that box to a particular tile with an offset in that tile, like, from the middle to the lower right. So when it's rendering that box, if the upper left corner is in the middle of a particular tile, then that, let's say, 8x8 chunk in the upper left corner of the visible box would be put there. So there's going to be some calculation going on, but what it will need is a grid of tile IDs that result from that. So we need some way of getting the world state, but what we're going to have is okay. So if we have a visible height and a visible width, that will give us this will give us the dimensions of the array, because it'll be visible width times visible height and length. X to Y kind of stuff. Or at least left to right, top to bottom. Then we're going to need a public int array . Godot. So we're going to have the total map state. Could just be considered a map here. Visible height and width are going to be determined by system variables. But so we can have getter setters on this. Because in the get we could reference some sort of like world setting or something like that. But make it more concise. X, Y. Integers because we're going to put like map texture references in here. To have them be integer references. Just checking some other, or thinking of some other things here. Once we start adding map textures, we've got some different concepts here. Let's not change that. Let's not change that. We're not touching that for now. Get texture keys and a key in which counted is. There's nothing that stops us from using any texture. When we're going through this. One of the patterns that I've seen for doing this, which apparently RimWorld does the thing that I'm looking to do, is that it has one master map texture that it stitches together with other ones. And then whenever it's referencing a spot, it translates that to a spot in the texture. So if it's supposed to be texture 3, then it's the third texture in a line that is set up in the texture. So in their example, everything was in smaller blocks, but the texture blocks were 1024 by 1024. And that made it so that when it referenced, it said like, okay, we're going to use the stone texture. it would translate that spot as if everything were the stone texture repeating, and it would just grab that spot in the repeating texture, put that down, with it always being offset by 1024 in the texture per index of it. So I could build a map texture based on a list of existing textures so that we only need the one map texture. And that might be the way to go, is that we just have one texture called map texture that is generated from a list of them. So we could hard code some of this for now. Let me take a look at something here. Be able to do it with image. We're doing another by the seat of our pants here, folks. What I'm looking to do is have the textures essentially be a list of them side by side. I'm not going to try to do too much fancy stuff for now. They'll just be one square that we're dealing with. I'll blend them. Line them. Again, what we're trying to do is we're looking for a way to programmatically stitch textures together side by side without iterating over every pixel. We could mush the data together. We're doing some reading. We're doing some reading. there's a lot of information on like taking layered textures and flattening them out. You know, putting A on top of B kind of thing. Should be able to load the image and get data at it on them, combine the data, and then create the image from there. Let's see if we can do that. But let's get that map render in the code so we can start it. So mesh type, so entity, map render, shader based. E. Script that is map render shader, map shader render. It goes into here, and then we can go into our default startup resource, plonk that here so it doesn't pitch a fit. There, okay, we've got it. Interop. Add child. Let's make sure we've got this set up in our services. Okay. Map render. Game, camera. Camera is camera. So how is camera null? Man, cats are slippery today. They are dodging sight. Oh wow. Look at that floof. Look at that. Once it loads. Being all cozy. They like kind of laying on it because it's kind of a permanently cool surface. camera handler gets camera. Game, we prepare services. Was camera handler getting updated before we set the camera? Weird. All right, how's this being called? It's being called from the Godot layer. Why did this suddenly happen? This camera exists. Entity mesh render is being set into a map handler. Okay. Oh. Just straight up error. It was failing on one spot and it rippled into another. Godot is like the engine is air tolerant while it's running. There are exception catches and it just allows them to keep going. There's a bit of danger to that, as we're seeing. But anyway. Map. Textures. That's what we were looking at. World map needs the catalog, and the catalog will have been initialized right away. Right there. As soon as this entity comes into existence, everything else flows. Because the catalog can get textures. Okay. So a map renderer should have a method that gets information from the catalog regarding a world map. Let's put that here. It'll be public. we call it? Texture wrapper. It's not really going to be a list of textures, though. Okay, no, there's not a master texture universally. It is a list of textures. Entity is loaded. It has a texture key. We'll have to look at that. Whether an entity actually needs a texture key, or if we can just get the texture. It gets a texture wrapper, it gets a texture wrapper, it copies it. We'll leave it for now. Because we only need to get textures. Shorthanding that, because we're going to need textures. Right. Let's rename. Textures folder the data folder contains no code. So as far as the project is concerned, the C# project is concerned, it's empty. I could change that. But for now, we're not gonna. I wouldn't mind being able to edit them in here, but it will be a big, nasty folder. Okay, so we have terrain background currently. It is a 16 by 16. It uses that as its source file. We could actually separate the textures out because we fully specify where in the data folder the texture lives. That's largely done because in code, we can't do that outside of local to the folder, like to the game folder. We can't say local to. We can't use like a dot or something like that because the script file doesn't have it. So we fully specify it out, which isn't a problem. We do that elsewhere. We could have hard-coded aspects within the loading process. But this gives us some more flexibility as far as loading goes. Okay, so we have that. We're going to get terrain background. like that. Oh, yeah. It's probably saying, like, hey, you could just use chained dot references. I don't like doing that. It is functionally the same as doing this, but it reduces clarity because then you just have a long code line over and over and over. Not gonna. Terrain. This is not a magic string. We're not going to load it this way for testing purposes. Then have a test texture. Are we going to use that in reality? No, we're going to mess with it for this, though. So we need an image. Create from data. So I want to check something here. Width depth of 32. Yeah, should be an RGBA. Okay. So it's a byte array of data. Texture dot image dot get data. That will return a byte array. So we're looking to combine them. I want to do this, and then we're going to use that texture and put it on the screen somewhere. I want to see what happens. I think Union would do it. I don't want it to. Not a string. I mean, I could use it as a. Alright, feeling foolish here. Let's just look that up. Okay, we can copy it into subsequent space. Is messy, but it's not really a problem. Okay. Got that. That's our image data. Double it. Image data at 0. At image data dot length. So now we have the two of them. Create from data. Our width is equal to. Let's extract this out. make it more concise. And height width is 2. Height. Hey there, Fox Game. Welcome. Any of the cats visible right now? How you doing? Height. That is true for now. Image dot format. GBA 8. Find image data. And test. New texture 2D. Create from image, combined image. We're trying to get our map render in place, and I'm testing a concept here where I am compositing a series of textures together into one long blob. Because I want to pass this all to a shader as concisely as possible. I might end up just using an array of textures and load them all, which may still be the better way to do it. But this gives me some flexibility in having permutations of objects. So instead of having, let's say, the exact same square of grass, I could have a series of them so that side by side they don't look the same. That sort of thing. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. But then in our let's see, where is it? Hiding game. So we've instantiated it all. World state. Going to have a world map is equal to new world map. World map is where that's happening. By doing new world map, we have initiated it accordingly. That gives us our our test texture. Go into the Godot side and we go to our world state. We have a base world state here. We're going to add a child node, which is a texture rectangle. So then in base world state, We're working on a 2D vampire survivors style game using Godot engine 4.3 currently. Again, what we're doing right now is trying to render it. We'll see how this goes. Okay, so we go into our base world state, we rebuild the C# to get that inspector object loaded up. Texture rectangle there into the test slot. So we have a new world map. Texture is equal to world map dot test dot base world map. Base world state needs a world map, which it has. Why can I not get test out of that? That was protected. It's not public. Oops. It's not terrain anymore. It's a map. Here's map. Let's see how this do. Screen background not loading. Oh, terrain. Yeah. We're going to reset that whole thing. Stuff first. Re-index it. Zero is nothing. What's going on here? Map. Magic strings. Ah, okay. This isn't ready. Because until ready, this object doesn't exist. Still null. But it should be. It should be there. Over and give some back scratches, crying kitten. Let's try that. Still null, but it should be ready. So if we look in game, in ready, we have access to camera. Huh. Public. We have sabotaged another piece here. Rebuild. Yeah. By changing the name of it, it broke that reference there. Okay, then we're going to move this down to here. (32 by 16 by 4). Oh, there. But they might not add together as I was hoping. Yeah. Because end to end doesn't necessarily mean the same thing here. Let's do it the other way here. Same thing. GPA with 5 bitmaps. Let's generate bitmaps. This might end up being a halt for more research day. Merge these. Switch over to cat camera. As if we can still dodge this. We can still just dodge this. So we have an image texture. Okay. So for the time being, we're not going to try to do fully the fancy stuff. Make sure we're putting this in the right order. Need to make sure the entities go over top of this. Nope. Oh, we put it in world state, didn't we? Yeah, we put it in world state. All right, quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Okay. Right.
Go into our game. World state is currently the last thing. This should be in map renderer. But let's put all of the stuff okay, so collision manager and entity manager are how the world works. How the game world works. World state should be here because it's prior to. There we go. We need to scale it accordingly. Currently a ×6 scale. Default, it's 16 by 16. So we're going to use the same concept that I was thinking of, which is still, we're going to make a Godot shader for a big rectangle. We'll put that in the map renderer. And that, so what it's going to do is it's going to be the visual space needed to cover that. Get you out of there. We're going to change base world state. We're going to remove that export. That. We go into our map renderer. Our map shader renderer. Rectangle. Set on it just in case. Visible map that we're going to set. So in the map renderer scene, add a child node, which is a texture rectangle. We're going to call visible map. Build the C# side so that it can see that visible map property. Pop that in there. This is the texture that we will write to. Shader material, the shader material have a shader to it. Make sure we have the same consistency here. Shaders. In the sprite animator shader, this item, okay? Weird. Here this still runs. Errors in the debugger, okay. Doesn't have a texture index. We don't need to load anything in Entity Shader at the moment. But we are going to have a position, which we could load in custom. We're going to need a couple of things whenever we load it. It's not a varying, it's a uniform. Go into our entity mesh renderer. Actual rendering logic. We can move this out of process. We could put this elsewhere. And it will probably be a good idea to do so. Putting it in a manually called element means that pausing is easier. We would have one place that pause logic is handled. Through just be setting custom data, but we would also be setting map information each time. Where are we setting that? Entity mesh. Texture wrapper. Sort all the entity meshes by Y. We determine which scaling multiplier to use to face left or right. If it's rotated, we are going to set rotation of it. Position it. We set the transform accordingly. We set the custom data. Get which texture to use, which entity mesh, and which animation. It's like we're missing something. ID, texture, index, and animation. Now that's stored as a varying element. We're just passing them in here. So we will need uniforms set up for textures and animations. This gets tricky. It gets real tricky. Because each one needs to know, each part of it needs to know which texture we're actually using. But if we have the we don't have a master texture though. We need the master texture. If we don't have master texture, we can't short circuit this, because otherwise we need to be rendering each individual tile, and we don't want to render each individual tile. Which leads us back around that inside here we would need to be able to generate a texture based on a series of them, which means we'll need to be able to stitch them together. That's a bit of a problem. Let's see here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut short a little early today. I need to do a little more reading, watching, to figure out how we're going to stitch the textures at runtime. Because I want to be able to load up all the texture images and glue them together side by side or in a uniform format, so we know which one to use. Then what we can do is send in position logic, but we still need to know how to map that out. So we need also a way to pass in there's a lot of variables that I still need to work on here. But we've got some of the basics in. I think we do need to call it here today. So, noticeably less progress from last time, but we'll have to work on that. Said more reading, more research, figure out how things are going or how they need to go. But I hope you had a good time watching with us tonight. If you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe. That sort of thing helps the channel grow. With all that said, the rest of your day is good, and I'll see you next time.